All right, continuing with Daniel, the book of Daniel. We're in chapter 8. I hope you've been with me all along because this is a hard one to understand if you don't have all the background in there. But this picture looks awfully busy, but it doesn't have near as much in there as I wanted to put in there. Listen, we are in chapter 8. Chapter 8 is this portion right here. I've got arrows pointing to it. We've seen in the previous chapters some things. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. We've seen in some previous chapters some things relative to first of all, the history. The first 6 chapters were history. It's autobiography of Daniel's time in Babylon and Medo-Persia. Anyway, as we got into chapter 7, and that's what all these pictures are about, in chapter 7, well, not all the pictures. In chapter 7, it started with the prophetic section. And we can't ignore the fact that Daniel chapter 2 was prophetic also. That was Nebuchadnezzar's dream in chapter 2. And we see that in the pictures here of the image that Nebuchadnezzar saw. And, of course, over here we've got the image that I drew there, showing a little more. It shows the stone cut out of the mountain without hands. They came and smashed the image in its toes. And it got both feet there as it came down. Then in chapter 7, where it picks up with Daniel's vision of prophecy, the first chapter was of Nebuchadnezzar's, or second chapter was of Nebuchadnezzar's vision of prophecy. But around this loop here, we've got the chapter 7. Then in chapter 8, which is where we are now, that's these pictures here. This is the Medo-Persian Empire. This is the Greek Empire, specifically identified in the chapter there. In Daniel's vision, his first vision, we saw the lion, which was an image that had wings and lost his wings and stood up like a man. And this is the picture of Babylon here. And my arrow seems to have gone away. There it is. Then we have Medo-Persia represented by a bear holding 3 ribs in its mouth, and we talked about the conquest that it made. Then we have the Greek Empire, which is represented by a leopard with 4 heads, and we talked about why that is. Alexander the Great was the first king there, and we saw that that's represented in the he-goat here, the rough goat with the single horn. That was Alexander the Great. But when Alexander died, it divided into 4 kingdoms, and so we've got 4 heads here. I hope you can see the 4 heads. Then we have the 4th beast, which is undescribable. And part of that beast has 10 horns, just like the 10 toes that Nebuchadnezzar's dream had. But out of there, a little horn rises up, pulls 3 of the horns out by the roots, and it becomes a prominent leader there. Anyway, the image that we have here with the single horn is the first king of Greece. That's Alexander the Great, who came and destroyed the Medo-Persians. And out of this, we saw an image in our previous studies where we had 4 horns, where the kingdom was divided into to 4. Now, I want you to remember the prophecy goes back to the 600 BC area. That's where Nebuchadnezzar had his dream, is in the 601 BC probably. Then Daniel had his dream after a new king took over. Belshazzar was the king, and this was in his first year of his reign. Then the third year of his reign, he reigned for 14 years. The third year of his reign, we have these two. We don't get into the fourth beast here. And we don't have the first beast here because Daniel is he's not. He's still in Babylon at this point in time. But he's dreaming of the second kingdom that's going to be there, and the third kingdom. That's what we've got in chapter 8. We want to keep that in mind as we're studying. Now, as part of this, I want us to remember what we've studied in each chapter. Chapter 1, we saw the captivity. Daniel was taken to Babylon. He purposed in his heart that he would not defile himself. Then in chapter 2, we had Nebuchadnezzar's dream that we just pointed out there. All of the world empires, all the way to the coming kingdom of Jesus taking over. Then in chapter 3, we saw Nebuchadnezzar set up his own idol, I think defying God, shaking his fist at God, saying, "My kingdom is not going to end." And there we had the fiery furnace of those that were committed and refused to take part in worshiping an idol. Then in chapter 4, we had Nebuchadnezzar's second dream. His second dream was of a tree, and the tree was cut down, and Nebuchadnezzar was told that tree is him. And he was cut down and actually became insane for 7 years. And after those 7 years, he went back and was able to rule in the kingdom, and he gave his testimony. It was a testimony of one that would sounds like he was saved. Then in chapter 5, we've got Belshazzar, who was the king following Nebuchadnezzar, his grandson. At least we think he was his grandson. Anyway, he was having a party, and in his party he brought the vessels that had been taken from the temple in Jerusalem and was drinking wine from those, insulting God. And God reached down through the wall or through the ceiling, however he did it, handwriting on the wall. He wrote there, "Mene, mene, tekel, upharsin," which is the message that Belshazzar's time was up. Anyway, then we got into chapter 6. Chapter 6, Daniel had moved into the Medo-Persian Empire. And there we have a proud king and Daniel going to the lion's den. Chapter 7 was Daniel's first vision, at least the first that he recorded for us. And it was a vision of all of the kingdoms and judgment all the way through the final judgment. Then chapter 8, Daniel had a second vision, and in the vision is only two kingdoms, just like I've mentioned previously here. It was Medo-Persia and Greece. Chapters 2, 7, and 8 are our prophetic chapters. Chapters 2 and 7 gave us full vision of the prophecies. And remember, they started about 600 BC, and they go all the way down past our time. Chapter 8 deals with only two empires, deals with the Medo-Persians and the Greek empires. It's not a full prophecy. Chapter 8, though, provides, I think, picture of what the future is going to be. Daniel lived 500 to 600 BC that is in the 500, 600 BC time frame. And he's describing these events that happened many, many years after him. For that reason, scholars often, that is, some scholars often portray the book of Daniel as having to have been written later, because he couldn't have known these things. He couldn't have known the marvelous things that God told him in 500-600 BC time frame. Well, I don't follow those scholars. As a matter of fact, I had one of my substitute Hebrew teachers come in trying to present Daniel that way, and I just dumped him out. I didn't even listen to what he had to say. But anyway, we saw in chapter 7 a little horn from the Roman Empire. He pulled up 3 kings by the roots, 3 of the 10 kings, and he became the prominent ruler. In chapter 8, we're dealing with the Greeks, and the Greeks had a little horn also, but it's a different little horn. And I believe that he is a picture of the future time that we've got during the tribulation period. But I want us to remember our key verses that we have studied in the book of Daniel. Excuse me. Here we go. Daniel chapter 2, verses 21 and 22 says, He changeth the times and the seasons. He removeth kings. This is talking about God. God's the one that changes the times and the seasons. He's the one that removeth kings and setteth up kings. He giveth wisdom to the wise and knowledge to them that know understanding. He revealeth the deep and secret things. He knoweth what is in the darkness, and the light dwelleth in him. From there, we are, excuse me, I keep messing this up. Anyway, that would be a good point where we left off last time to end chapter 8. We have seen the vision and the limited interpretation of that vision from chapter 8. But we got some more information that the Lord wants to give us in way of interpretation. And so that's what we're going to be looking at today. No more of the kingdom, just some interpretation of that. Anyway, I will be doing a little speculating in this. Watch it. Check it out. Don't tie God down to my speculations. Anyway, I'm not a prophet, so keep that in mind as we go through our study today. But we're going to look at an outline of God's timing, the kingdoms, and some characteristics of the little horn. So let's start with Scripture, verses or chapter 8, starting with verse 15. And it came to pass, when even I, Daniel, had seen the vision and sought for the meaning, then, behold, there stood before me as the appearance of a man. And I heard the man's voice between the banks of the Uli, which called and said, Gabriel, make this man to understand the vision. Now, imagine this voice coming out. It's apparently God speaking. The Uli is a large channel, and Gabriel and Daniel are there. Gabriel was commissioned to explain the vision to Daniel. This is the first time God has called an angel by name, but Gabriel is assigned an important task all through the scriptures. Remember Zacharias, the father of John the Baptist. Gabriel came to him to tell him about the coming of John and what John would do. Then we got Mary and Joseph. Gabriel was telling them about the coming of Jesus. That seems to be very much his eternal job. Let's go on with our reading in the book of Daniel, talking about God's timing. So he came near. This is Gabriel came near, and where I stood. And when he came, I was afraid and fell upon my face. This is an angel that Daniel is falling on his face before. Imagine being there before Jesus himself. Imagine being there before God the Father. Oh, we're going to love it. So he came near where I stood, and when he came, I was afraid and fell upon my face. But he said unto me, Understand, O Son of Man, for at the time of the end shall be the vision. Now, as he was speaking with me, I was in a deep sleep, and my face toward the ground. But he touched me and set me upright. And going on into verse 19. And he said, Behold, I will make thee know what shall be in the last end of the indignation, for at the time appointed the end shall be. Now, it's important to understand these words, and I sure am glad I'm studying Hebrew, because it really helps to understand these things. What we've got here in verses 17 and 19, they're relating to time. In 17, it says the time of the end. And the word there is kates. That comes from a root word, kates, which means to chop off or to end. It's the word that was used in Genesis chapter 6, verse 13, talking about the time of the flood. It says, And God said to Noah, the end, there it is, there's the word, the end of all flesh is come before me, for the earth is filled with violence through them. And behold, I will destroy them with the earth. Now, what this does, it sets a boundary. That word is a boundary type word. And you know that 8 people survived the flood. Noah and his 3 sons and their wives, and Noah's wife, all survived the flood, but none of the others made it. Antiochus is a hurdle, just like the flood was a hurdle. He's a horrible leader. But unlike Noah's time, the ones that died under Antiochus were the faithful. And that was happening until the Maccabees came along with their revolt and ended the Greek rule over them. Then verse 19, well, there we see the boundary. But in verse 19, it says, in the last end of the indignation, the Hebrew word there for last end is here before you, aharit, and that that means the last or the end. It goes on to mean something's in the future. Also, it can mean posterity or remnant or residue or reward. These are the definitions that you get in a lexicon. The root word of hair means after. After. It's not that there's nothing going on beyond. It's after this indignation. These things are going to happen. Anyway, these Hebrew words force our understanding to believe that there is a something beyond the Greeks here. And certainly we know that there is a fourth kingdom beyond the Greeks. But this is a picture of the future. At least that's my belief. That's my speculation there. As we mentioned in our last study, this pointed to the future time after Antiochus Epiphanes. He's only a picture of what is to happen. And we read in the New Testament about the abomination of desolation, which is future to Jesus' time. Some try to make that the destruction of the temple, but from looking at the picture of Antiochus Epiphanes, what he had going on there was he had set up an altar to Zeus and was having pigs offered in sacrifice to Zeus. And he was even having priests eat the flesh of pigs. But the Maccabees drove him off. They used a guerrilla-type warfare and attacked the soldiers of Antiochus. Actually, Antiochus didn't really understand how intense these Jewish soldiers were going to be. And he was off fighting some other battles, and he left some generals in charge of fighting the battles there in Judah. And they didn't do so well against the Maccabees. And so the Maccabees were able to drive them out. Anyway, remember that in chapter 2 and chapter 7, we're instructed that there are 4 world kingdoms. We're only seeing 2 here. It started with number 2 and went into number 3. It never went into number 4. But both 2 and 7 wind up with an indication of 10 kings. I'm speculating a little bit on the toes being kings, but 10 of something there. And chapter 7 points out that those are kings. Anyway, we haven't seen those yet. Those are still future to us. And so we'll continue to have some fun with this. But for your soundness of mind, I want to jump down to verse 27. And I, Daniel, fainted. Gabriel has come to explain this to Daniel. He's been given the charge by God to explain this to Daniel, and Daniel fainted, listening to the instruction. I want you to know we're going to judge angels someday. They better do a better job of explaining at that time than what they're doing here to Daniel. And I, Daniel, fainted and was sick certain days. Afterwards he rose up, that is, Daniel rose up, and did the king's business, and I was astonished at the vision, but none understood it. Folks, if you don't understand Daniel's vision, chapter 8, with Gabriel, an angel, much closer to God than any human is going to be, especially this one here. So if you're confused about the explanation that's coming from this human, then don't feel that you've been deprived, because Daniel, having an angel explain it, didn't understand. He even fainted, and of course he was old by that time. Some of you may not be old, but that didn't matter. He didn't understand this at all. But I don't want anybody getting sick, so I tell you this ahead of time. If you're confused, just accept the confusion. But we're going to jump ahead to chapter 9. Remember, chapter 8 only goes through the third kingdom. Chapter 9 gets into the fourth kingdom time, but we're going to jump ahead there just a little bit to see something that I think will help us a little bit. But recognize that Gabriel was a complete failure in chapter 8. Daniel didn't understand. And chapter 9, we're skipping there because Gabriel tried again. Gabriel's the top angel, and he can't explain this to where Daniel could understand it. But remember, as we're studying this, Daniel's vision was received by him the 3rd year of Belshazzar's rule in Babylon. He's not in the Medo-Persian Empire yet. And Belshazzar lasted for 14 years as king. Daniel didn't understand it, and his prayer is about another matter in chapter 9. It's not the same vision, not the same thing we're dealing with here, but Gabriel was sent back to renew his charge to explain the vision to Daniel. So let's go to chapter 9, and we'll see here in verse 24 what Gabriel has to say. 70 weeks. We're not going to deal with the 70 weeks in this study. That's going to be in the future. 70 weeks are determined upon thy people, that is, upon the Jews. 70 weeks are determined upon thy people and upon the holy city, that's Jerusalem, to finish the transgressions and to make an end of sins, to make reconciliation for iniquity, to bring in everlasting righteousness, and to seal up the vision and prophecy, and to anoint the most holy. Gabriel is told to step out and do it again, explain to Daniel again, and I believe he's trying to explain some of chapter 8 with this. And we're not going to deal with what he's dealing with in chapter 9, but I'm just saying that he tried again, and Daniel still didn't get it. But look at what he says here in this verse that is going to be accomplished. He is going to make an end of sins. God's going to make an end of sins, make reconciliation for iniquity, bring in everlasting righteousness, seal up the vision and the prophecy, and to anoint the most holy. Now, those things maybe in part have been accomplished, but there's still a lot to be done there. We're just going to look at one of those things. It says that he's going to finish the transgressions. Now, let me back up here. Oops. Let me back up because I did not include that in my list. But that's the first one in the thing that he's going to do. 70 weeks are determined upon thy people and upon thy holy city to finish the transgressions. I left that out of my list there for some reason. Anyway, we want to look at this. This is to finish the transgressions against Israel. And that hadn't been accomplished yet. The transgressions didn't start with Antiochus, and they didn't finish there. They didn't even end with the Roman rule. So I know it's a big jump that we're dealing with here, but I want us to remember what we've seen in some of our previous studies about the things that are to happen. First of all, we live here in the church age, and that's now. The rapture is where the church is taken out of the world. Then we've got 7 years of tribulation that are going to occur on the earth. And that is part of what we're seeing pictured in the things of Antiochus. Then we've got Jesus' return. He's going to come to the earth. He will be anointed here to rule for 1,000 years. Following that, we've got the great white throne judgment, and then the new heaven and new earth. We've talked about all of those in previous studies, but I thought we should remind you of that as we're going in here. But the church age started in the Roman Empire, and that's where we live now. That age will end. Jesus will call his church home, and we call that the rapture. That comes from the Latin word that means to be caught up. No dates were set for these empires to end. We weren't given dates on those. Now, the dates I've given you are dates looking back as to when it actually happened. But the Lord didn't give us dates in the visions that we're seeing there. And so we don't have a date for the rapture. When somebody tells you they've got a date, turn them off. But I remember the first time I ever saw this chart. I was so excited. I was 28 years old before I saw this chart. And I didn't know about the things that were coming here. But let's go back to chapter 8 and reread the verses that we started with there. So he came near where I stood, and when he came, I was afraid and fell upon my face. But he said unto me, Understand, O Son of Man. I just wonder if this angel is wanting to call Daniel a big dummy. You better not, because Daniel's going to judge him one of these days. Understand, O Son of Man, for at the time of the end shall be the vision. Now, as he was speaking with me, I was in a deep sleep on my face toward the ground, but he touched me and set me upright. And verse 19, And he said, Behold, I will make thee know what shall be in the last end of the indignation, for at the time appointed the end shall be. Now, I hope you understood those Hebrew words, not specifically understood the Hebrew words, but understood what I was saying about them. The word end and last end of the indignation, I think the Hebrew is a big help, because those are boundary words. And remember, we're only covering 2 kingdoms here. We know that there's a 4th kingdom, one after the ones that we're looking at here. And so this is just a boundary between the end of the 3rd kingdom, the Greek kingdom. But it pictures the tribulation, which I believe is beyond the what we saw as the Roman Empire. Anyway, we've got another empire to come. And let's go to the verses that we have been reading in our studies as we've been studying these things. Daniel 8, verses 20 through 22 says, The ram which thou sawest having 2 horns are the kings of Media and Persia. Now that's, Daniel is still in the Babylonian Empire when he's seeing this vision. But he knows that the Medo-Persians are going to take over the Babylonian Empire because he's told that. And the rough goat is the king. That's the other beast that we saw. And the rough goat is the king of Grecia, Greece beat the Medo-Persians, and the great horn that is between his eyes is the first king. That's Alexander the Great. Now, that being broken, whereas four stood up, the four generals took over, four stood up for it, four kingdoms shall stand up out of the nation, but not in his power. Now, understand, the four kingdoms stood up. It took 20 years to get that settled. Alexander was asked, as he was dying, who was to take over the lead, and his answer was the strongest. That guy. Anyway, this is, excuse me, this is, again, what Daniel was seeing. Excuse me, I didn't bring any water to drink while I'm doing this. But let's go on to verse 23. It says, in the latter time of their kingdom, what kingdom is that? You better keep this in mind. This is the Greek kingdom. And in the latter end of their kingdom, when the transgressors are come to full, a king of fierce countenance and understanding dark sentences shall stand up. Now, it says, in the latter time of their kingdom. And I ask again, whose kingdom is this? There are only two kingdoms in chapter 8. The last time of their kingdom, that is the Greek Empire. And it says that one will stand up. We have interpreted that in our past study as being Antiochus Epiphanes. And there are some problems with our understanding here. Remember that the Greek kingdom lasted 100 years beyond Antiochus, but not really ruling over Israel. And these visions have to do with ruling over Israel. Remember what we were looking at in verse 25. And through his policy, also he shall cause craft to prosper in his hand, and shall magnify himself in his heart, and by peace shall destroy many. He shall also stand up against the prince of princes, but he shall be broken without hand. Now, there are several popular interpretations, and I went the wrong way with that. In the latter time of their kingdom, and this, of course, is the Greek kingdom, and it says that he will be broken without hand. Now, there are some historical disputes about how Antiochus died. One claim is that he died in battle. A second claim is that he drowned falling off a ship into the sea. The third claim fits this very well. The third claim is that he died of an intestinal disease. He was having so much pain in his stomach that he ran his chariot out of control and fell out, and there were worms crawling out of his belly. Anyway, that description fits what we have here in Scripture. But a second interpretation of chapter 8 believes that, and this is not one that I hold, believes that this is referring to the king of the north in Ezekiel 38 and 39, referring to Russia. And where do they get that? The claim is that Russia came out of Greece, out of the Greek world, and I don't think that fits at all. But a third interpretation, and the one that I hold, is that Antiochus gave us a historical picture of the future little horn. Let's go back to Daniel 23. It says, "And in the latter time of their kingdom," the Greek kingdom, "when the transgressors are come to full, a king of fierce countenance, Antiochus Epiphanes, and understanding dark sentences shall stand up." Now, again, I believe that he represents a picture of the future little horn that comes out of the Roman Empire. He's just a picture of it. He's not that little horn. Anyway, Daniel chapter 7 tells us of a 10-nation confederacy, probably in Western Europe, and we call it the revived Roman Empire. And Greece could be part of that. And we know that 3 of the horns were plucked out by the root. Greece could be one of those. And chapter 2, we saw 10 toes. But let's look at Daniel chapter 7 again, and verse 8. It says, "I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn." Now, this is in the Roman Empire. I hope I'm not confusing everybody. We got the Greek Empire, which I believe is a picture of the things that are going to happen in the Roman Empire. "I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn, before whom there were 3 of the first horns plucked up by the roots. And behold, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking great things." Excuse me, I went the wrong way. The 7, in chapter 7, the horn again originates with 10 nations, and maybe one of those nations is the Greeks. Maybe the Lord is telling us something in chapter 8. What if Daniel chapter 8 and verse 23 is a picture of later times and refers to the tribulation time? You know, the 10 kings have not occurred in the picture that we have in Daniel chapter 7, nor chapter 2. But the kingdoms we saw in chapter 2, remember, the legs went down and the feet were miry clay with just pieces of the strength of the Roman Empire in it. Some say that this could be the Syrians, because Antiochus Epiphanes ruled in the what we call the Syrian area now. But chapter 7 indicates that the little horn will rise out of the 10 nations, or when the 10 nations are there. And I hope this is not too confusing, because we're jumping from kingdom to kingdom here. But the Greek Empire is what we're seeing in chapter 8. Chapter 7 brought us all of the empires, including the Greek and including the Romans. But the little horn in chapter 8 is from the Greek Empire. The little horn of chapter 7 is of the Roman Empire. So keep those straight. And I believe the one of the Roman Empire has to do with the little horn, the Antichrist to come. Anyway, let's look at some of the characteristics of the little horn, And to do that, we'll jump back to verse 23. And in the latter time of their kingdom, when the transgressors are come to full, a king of fierce countenance, see that there, and understanding dark sentences. Fierce countenance is our first characteristic here. And I jumped back to where I didn't mean to. Anyway, that king will stand up, and again, I believe that's Antiochus Epiphanes. Some people don't know where we're going, and I'm sure that you think I don't know where we're going here. But anyway, this is going to This is one of the characteristics, is he's going to have a fierce countenance. And indeed, Antiochus, a lot of people died under the rule of Antiochus. Secondly, is he has an understanding of dark sentences. Still there in verse 23, there in the end of it, you see understanding dark sentences. Dark sentences means riddles. It's not silly riddles that we're dealing with here. This is the same thing that Daniel was praised for when he understood the dream of Nebuchadnezzar. And it's said about Daniel. Anyway, Daniel chapter 5 and verse 12 says, "For as much as an excellent spirit and knowledge and understanding, interpreting of dreams, and showing of hard sentences." Speaking of Daniel there, Daniel had this capability, and evidently Antiochus is going to have that capability, or did have that capability. And again, I think this is a picture of the Antichrist to come. Let's go to his power, and verse 24. "And in his power," there it is, "in his power shall be mighty, but not of his own power. And he shall destroy wonderfully, and shall prosper and practice, and shall destroy the mighty and holy people. But his power shall be mighty, but it's not his own power." We can go over to the book of Revelation and read about the beast over there. It says, "And the beast which I saw was like a leopard," that is the Greek Empire, "and his feet were as the feet of a bear," the Medo-Persian Empire, "and his mouth as the mouth of a lion," Babylonian Empire. "And the dragon," probably the Roman Empire, or possibly Satan, "gave him his power and his seat and great authority." Now we can see in we're peeking over into the New Testament and recognize that by me doing so, I'm doing some speculating here that these fit into what we're talking about. So keep that in mind. But 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 and verse 9 says, "Even him whose coming is after the working of Satan, with all power and signs and lying wonders." Now, I'm connecting those together, but again, be careful when we skip to things like that. But anyway, in the power of Satan. Satan was the father of lies. He was a ruler or this king here is a ruler that has power to do miracles, wonders, and signs, just like Jesus did. And he's going to destroy, prosper, and practice. Verse 24 again says, and his power shall be mighty, but not by his own power, and he shall destroy wonderfully. Can you think of the word wonderfully being used with destruction? And he shall destroy wonderfully, and shall prosper and practice, and shall destroy the mighty and holy people. So another of the characteristics here is that he's going to destroy, prosper, and practice. This guy, I believe, we're in chapter 8. This guy is a picture of the one that I believe is going to pluck 3 of the kings out by the root, and from the 10-nation group. Antiochus didn't do that. Don't get mixed up. Antiochus is a picture of the future. He's not the future. He's a picture of it. But let me tell you some history around the time of Daniel that Daniel doesn't record, or around Antiochus. But Antiochus was the son of Antiochus the Great. He was the 3rd son. And the father had been defeated by the Romans. They didn't come and take over his kingdom, but Antiochus the Great was trying to take them over, and he didn't succeed. But to keep the peace, to make a basis for the treaty, the Romans took a hostage. And the hostage that they took was Antiochus the Great's younger son, his 3rd son, Antiochus Epiphanes. But he wasn't called Epiphanes in that time. Anyway, he spent 14 years as a hostage of the Romans. When his father died, his older brother took over, and they swapped hostages. They took the son of the older brother, and they turned Antiochus loose. But Antiochus had learned a lot about the way the Romans worked as he was staying there for those years. Anyway, his brother was assassinated, not by Antiochus, but by another gentleman. I call him gentleman. Anyway, that assassin took charge, and Antiochus eliminated the assassin, and the rightful heir to the throne was still a baby. Well, Antiochus, as a nice guy, just was going to help out the baby, but the baby died, probably helped, and Antiochus became the full king. So he wasn't the rightful heir to the throne, but 3 died so that he could take that place. So he destroyed, he prospered, and he practiced. Let's go ahead here. He destroyed mightily and prospered and practiced, and he destroyed the mighty and holy people. Now, I believe that that's in reference to the Jews. Many died under the reign of Antiochus. And I've got here in your display the things that I've already told you about. Anyway, in verse 25 of Daniel 8, it says, and through his policy also he caused craft, that is deceit, to prosper. in his hand. And he shall magnify himself in his heart. He called himself Epiphanes. Remember what that means. Glorious manifestation. What a guy. And by peace shall destroy many. He shall also stand up against the Prince of Princes. Now, again, I believe this is a picture of the future Antichrist standing up against Jesus. But he shall be broken without hand. And we've already talked about how Antiochus died. But his policy of deceit lets craft or deceit prosper in his hand. But even during the church age, even during our time, deceit seems to prosper. Some are declaring Christ's coming, and people follow him. Daniel mentions the Prince of Princes here, which I believe is Jesus coming. Going on into verse 26, says, "And the vision of the evening and morning which was told is true. Wherefore shut up the vision, for it shall be for many days." This is a concluding verse. This is Gabriel saying, Daniel, shut up the vision, close it out. I know you don't understand. I'm an angel. You're not smart enough to understand this stuff. You're just a human. Oh, no, I bet he didn't say that. But I bet he was thinking it. Anyway, we're going to be judging angels someday. And we need to remember what we've studied. This is the picture of Nebuchadnezzar's dream. And remember that Daniel's vision that comes in chapter 8 comes during the Babylonian time. But the vision only covers the Medo-Persian and Greek time. Please understand that. We got the Roman time to follow. Daniel's vision came in about 550 BC. I don't want to quit. There's a lot to learn here. But Gabriel says, quit. The vision was declared. The kingdoms were declared. The kings were declared. The time was appointed. Not told, but appointed. It will be for many days. That's all we're told about the time. Anyway, the Medo-Persians and Greeks, no longer. We can look back and we can see them, but they were still ahead of where Daniel was. We can look back and we can see those times. Only Rome remained after Daniel's vision. But the miry clay and the Roman strength still remains for us. We haven't seen the 10 kings. The spirit of the Antichrist is here. We're told that in the New Testament. And we must guard against it. Cults rise up. And I thought there was one cult that had disappeared. The Worldwide Church of God and Herbert W. Armstrong. Speaking prophecy. I used to listen to some of that kind of stuff. I didn't understand what they portrayed, but they portrayed a different Christ, a different Jesus. There's no temple there now, but things are happening. Things are happening in Israel. It's important when we study these things that we don't get caught up in one of these cults. We don't want to get deceived. I've tried to share with you when I'm speculating. The cults don't usually do that. Some will tell you that Jesus is coming, and he is coming, but we don't set dates. Some believe in a false Jesus. Folks, that's bad stuff to believe in a false Jesus. But Christians are being persecuted and killed all over the world. Even here in America, Christians are being arrested for sharing the gospel. That's happened just this past week in Detroit. Just for sharing their faith. Many may come to us, but we must see through eyes that are looking for eternity. And we want to make sure that we're going to be there with our Lord in eternity. He says that if thou shalt confess with thy mouth the Lord Jesus, and shalt believe in thine heart that God hath raised him from the dead, thou shalt be saved. Oh, I hope you're saved. For with the heart man believeth unto righteousness. Folks, we don't get to go to heaven as unrighteous beings. We're declared righteous by believing in Jesus. For with the heart man believeth unto righteousness, and with the mouth confession is made unto salvation. Again, I hope you're saved. If you're not, ask Jesus to come into your heart today. Declare him to be the Lord. Declare that you believe in his resurrection, and you'll be saved. Thank you for being with me.